define for themselves. I hope everybody who creates anything defines what success is for them. And it might be a number of things, and it might be a gradation of like, well, I'm successful for this, and then later I become successful for this, and then I become successful for that. Like, initially it was,
Yeah.
freelance for D&D. My first gaming love. If I could freelance for D&D and do that a few times, that's a success. If I can design my own game, that's a success. If I can kickstart it and actually put it into the hands of strangers, that's a success. If I can manage to do a second game, that's a success. If I can get the game into Gen Con, which get one of my games into Gen Con for the first time a couple years ago, that was a big moment. It's like, figure out what success means to you, and it can mean a bunch of small things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might be better a lot of times if it is a bunch of small things, because if you're thinking success is, I want my game to be played by 100,000 people, maybe
It's tough.
Maybe, but if the odds are against you, and so the chances that you're going to feel that success are pretty slim. But if your success, at least your first success, like measure of success, is to say, I'd like 100 people to buy my game.
Yeah,
that's not that hard to do. There are a variety of people who have done it, and you can take it at your own pace, and you can get there when you get there.
So what is success for you from here on out?
Where would I place those little?
Yeah,
I think doing a game with the Capers system, but like in a completely different genre, completely different thing, that would be a success. To see that mechanical system take on a different genre, not be a supers kind of game. I think that would be a pretty good success. I think every game that you publish is a success. So like or every supplement, if I can make a core game and put out 3 supplements for it, like my planned 3 supplements, that would be a success. There's I'm not going to say the numbers, but there is, like, in my head, there's a number of dollars per month.
Yeah.
Now that I'm at the point where I'm actually making a little bit of money off of it, and I'm there's something for that. There's a number of backers. That would be a success for a future product. I think 1,000 backers on a project would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be really awesome.
I've gotten a little over halfway there. I'm not, 1,000 is a ways off. We'll see. I think if I want to get 1,000 backers, I think I'm probably going to need to do something a little more mainstream, a little, in a genre that's a little more widely liked, as opposed to, like, a supers game that's set in a very specific period of time.
Yeah, a niche within a niche.
Yeah, that's a tougher sell.
Yeah,
but it's a game that, like, tell me the other supers game that's set during the 20s.
Yeah, I can't really think of any. I mean, I know there was Godlike during World
War II.
World War II.
Yeah.
But yeah, there have not been any that at least that have popped into my mind that had a setting that was for that.
And there may be one. It might be like something very small and obscure, or something from kind of before my time, or something that only got popular for a short period that I just wasn't around or a part of that scene. I don't know for sure, but I don't think there's probably too much out there, and I think that's probably the case with all 3 of the games that I've done so far. Is like, they're pretty unique.
Yeah.
In the portion of the RPG landscape that they dwell in, which is kind of one of the things that I go for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw that on the website, continuing to, like, push those innovative and unique things that no one else are playing. So dealing with kind of like these historical, alternate history, different things type of games, how do you handle kind of diversity when you're trying to write it, and how you want it to be seen?
Well, here's the deal with Capers, because Capers is set during the 20s, and there's a whole lot of racism and sexism and homophobia and so forth during the 20s. And so what I decided, for the sake of this game, because I wanted it to be an adventure game, kind of geared that direction, and I wanted it to be something that a wide variety of people would find themselves enjoying.
Yeah.
And I wanted people to open the book and see a character that looks like them, or see a character that's described and feels relatable and similar to them. So I basically created an alternate universe where the prejudice, the otherness that is expressed in the game is the supers, is the the people that have the abilities. They are the ones who are seen a little bit differently, and in some cases, some people see them as kind of celebrities. They're almost like tabloid celebrities. Some of them, the religion, the church sees them as kind of like, I don't know what to think about this. As the game progresses through the different supplements, like politics gets involved and the government starts to see them a different way. And so I specifically kind of like made it as welcoming as possible. I don't get overly specific with a lot of description of characters. And when it is presented, it's presented sort of as a matter of fact. Like, there'll be a time where you'll have an NPC that's described, and it's a male NPC, and it's described that and his wife, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a matter of fact, like that guy's married to a woman, and this is their relationship. But then in another spot, there's, a character that's presented that here's this male character who, and his boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And that's just presented as a matter of fact, that's just a part of that world. So I just kind of kept it that way. I mean, and that's mostly a matter of like what the game is about, what the game was intended to be about. Like there is certainly a game out there that focuses on the 20s that gets into racism or sexism or homophobia or bigotry in general, or that game can be written. I'm not sure that I'm the right person to write that game, at least not without a lot of research.
Yeah, definitely.
and bringing a lot of the right people on board to help. But that game, if that's the game you want to explore, I'm just speaking to the people who maybe want to make a game. If you think you have a hook for that, and that's something that interests you, and you think that it's worth exploring, like, bigotry during the 20s or during any era. There are games that touch on those types of things, that touch on colonialism, that touch on otherness in general. Like if you've ever played Monster Hearts.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good one that it's clearly, the characters in there are stand-ins for anybody who's ever felt difference, particularly in the LGBTQ kind of community. Anybody who identifies as queer in any way, trans people, so forth, NB people, that it explores all of that. And that's what that game is about. Capers is not about that. Now, that said, you're a grown-up, and if you want to incorporate those sort of themes into your game, you're welcome to do so. I didn't bake it into the game because I didn't really think that that's what the game was about. But you can, once you buy the game, it's not mine anymore, and you can play it however you want.
Yeah. I mean, as someone reading it, it was refreshing just to kind of see the 1920s with diverse like art used. You had people of different color, and just sexual preferences and stuff like that written to the game. So it's just cool to see kind of like people able to play the game without having to worry about aspects they don't want to worry about and just want to focus on being like these cool, over the top like gangster superheroes, or capers, or law enforcers, stuff like that.
Yeah, you kind of, I want you to get done playing capers and be kind of like, hey, my character is pretty cool. Whatever the cool is, the romanticized version of the 1920s gangster, even though, in real life, those people were murdering thugs and terrible people. But you're playing the romanticized version of that. I hope that the game does that. It encourages people. Like there's a sidebar right up front that talks about, playing absolutely any type of character you want. There are no penalties built into anything unless you wish to impose them.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and play a character in a wheelchair, and I'm not going to penalize your speed. You want to penalize your speed? You decide that that's appropriate for the game.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that.
So that was the intention there, was just to provide, like you said, a chance for you to play these kind of cool 20s gangsters.
Yeah. So like we're running out of time. So we'll be playing Capers itself. It'll be great. It'll be awesome. I'm gonna be wearing this hat.
It'll be the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas.
Exactly. If we don't use those phrases, we should be like hit or something. So I would definitely say Capers is a narrative light game that kind of focuses on a particular aspect of conflict resolution where you kind of are like gambling with every turn of the card.
Yep.
Is this type of narrative light game something that is your preference, or might you explore a more kind of like crunchy game, kind of like the 4E or the Pathfinder, or a middle ground? Well, how are you going to explore like different avenues of, I guess, conflict resolution and game design, or are you happy with the narrative light?
I doubt that I'll ever explore and design a game that's super duper crunchy.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really hard and takes a long time and a lot of playtesting. And if I want to publish a game in a reasonable amount of time, it's a little tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
And also, that's just not my game.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when it was, but I'm older now and I have less time to sit down and game the system and learn every little trick. My games, I think, like I consider Capers to be kind of a middle ground. It's got enough crunch that there's some satisfying choices and interesting things that happen with the card mechanic. But I've played plenty of games where you get very role play oriented, and there's not a lot of card flipping. Then into games that are more narrative heavy, like Die Laughing, we haven't mentioned, but that's basically there's a dice system in Die Laughing, and it does exactly two things, and that's all it does, and that's the whole mechanic for the game. And that game is very narrative. It's very much about describing your character's actions in a scene and kind of interacting with what's going on and role playing with the other characters, and then you make a dice roll to determine something about how the scene ends, and boom, you move on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just so unique. I love the flipping over the cards and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, so for anyone watching, in about 10 minutes, we will be starting up with our Capers the One Shot. It's gonna be amazing. Craig, do you have any final thoughts before we kind of send you off to go off making new games?
To go off and like sit back and catch up on a TV show or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a big believer that there's no such thing as too many games. If you've got an idea for something, you want to try making it. It could be as simple as just like, oh, here's an adventure for this, this game system I love, or it could be like you've got a whole game with a whole world you want to build. Give it a shot. Even if you never take it to the point of publishing and putting out for everybody, it might be something that, you and your friends really love. And that's worthwhile too.
All right. You heard it from Mr. Campbell yourself. So if you want to continue pushing game design and learning new things, definitely check out his website, NerdBurger Games, as well as check out his game over at DriveThruRPG. All of these will be right below here on our YouTube, as well as on the podcast. We'll have those links for you, so you can just scroll on down, check it out. Make sure to support him as well as his Patreon, and hopefully we'll see you guys at PAX Unplugged. No doubt, sign up for a game or say hi to Craig there. Craig, thank you for showing up and talking to us this night.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time in a little bit.
Bye. Go play games. Go play. Go play.
Yes, play all the games.
Shoot the Tommy gun. Go get them.
All right.